I think that we're living through the Bitcoin gold rush era. And I think the Bitcoin gold rush era started January 2024. And I think it runs until around November 2034. So it's about 10 years. And I'll tell you why. Because 93.5% or so of the Bitcoin was mined at the beginning of this period. But in November of 2034, 99% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be issued will have been issued. And so that halving is very symbolic. People talk about Bitcoin, issuance coming out over the next 100 years, all the way till 2140. But the truth of the matter is, the last 100 years, you're only getting 1%. And actually, of that 1%, 90 basis points of it is coming in the 12 years that follow 2034. And then it's 10 basis points, 0.1%. Mainstream investors, they have all the money, right? There's $900 trillion of wealth out there. There's only $1 trillion in Bitcoin. So 99.9% of the money, of the wealth, is not invested, right, in the asset class. So a lot of people that don't understand what this is have a lot of money, and yet we've got a 10-year period when there's going to be an explosive increase in education, right? As Bitcoin's going to go up, and as the price goes up, more people are going to get asked, and they're going to reject. They're like, stop asking me. I hate talking about this. Like, we don't like it because it's like gold. It doesn't generate cash flows, or they don't understand. If you don't understand perfect money, right? What's wrong with gold? Gold has emissions. Gold is inflationary. That's why it doesn't work. If you don't understand that, then you don't understand why digital gold is better than gold. So you don't understand Bitcoin. You don't understand money. And then you haven't really thought very deeply about property theory or capital theory. So you definitely don't understand digital capital, which means you don't understand digital energy, which means that when someone asks you, you're going to buy it, your answer is, of course, I'm not going to buy it. I don't get it. But what I say to people, right, like, if everybody read all these books, if they thought about it for a few hundred hours, tomorrow they would wake up, they would all buy Bitcoin, and Bitcoin would be $5 million a coin. And then we'd be doing this podcast, and you would say, Mike, all the comments from all my followers are, is it too late? I would say, well, it's too late for you to get insanely rich. You're not going to get 100x, right? If you buy Bitcoin at 50,000 when it's 5 million, you're going to be bragging to your kids that you got 100x your return, right? So it's going to be too late for that, but it's not too late to buy it, because it's still better to buy the thermodynamically sound digital asset, which doesn't have all of the liabilities of real estate, stocks, or bonds. It's still going to go up in value faster than the S&P index. It's still going to be a better after-tax return than owning sovereign debt. It's still going to be better than owning physical property subject to acts of God, force majeure, and all the other physical limitations. So it's still going to be the best investment. It's just not going to be the investment that got you the 100x return that you were going to brag about. And so there's no reason to worry, right, or fret. You don't want people to figure this out, right? Like if they figure it out, you have 10 years during which you can work, and you can buy Bitcoin while everybody else disagrees with you and doesn't understand it because they're intellectually lazy or they're a different generation. It's like me saying, it's 1905, and in 15 years, everybody's going to have an automobile, and now you know. Okay, well, you have 15 years to get rich in the automobile business. Figure out, are you going to set up the dealership in New York City? Are you going to start a company? Are you going to be a salesperson? What are you going to do? You have 15 years. Figure it out. This is better than that. But this is a 10-15-year head start. I had this analogy. It's like you could be working at a McDonald's. You could be working for $10 an hour, right? But if you're sweeping the $10 an hour in an asset that goes up by a factor of 100, you're getting paid $1,000 an hour. Okay, so how long do you want to work at $1,000 an hour? Well, you want to work at $1,000 an hour as long as you possibly can, because once people figure it out, then you go back to your $10 an hour job, right? So we're in the gold rush period. People are when they think about it, they're going to realize this is the period during which everybody in the world started to realize Bitcoin is digital capital, and there's a digital transformation of money, and that you want to hop on top of that. You want to exploit that. And there's 1,000 ways to do it. Maybe it's just work really hard at your job and buy Bitcoin. Maybe it's start a company. Maybe it's do something different. You decide. I don't ever regret any stacking I did. I mean, we bought Bitcoin, below 10,000. We bought Bitcoin probably above 60,000. I mean, at the end of the day, we never know when the world wakes up, gets rational, and then it runs through the all-time high, and then we regret not having bought more. I would encourage anybody that thinks maybe I'm too late. I mean, I think I would say, well, maybe you just haven't studied this enough, right? Don't give me your money if you're not confident. Give me your time, and if you don't want to invest the time, maybe you don't care about money that much. It must not matter to you that much. If it matters to you, then you spend enough time to figure out whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. And there's plenty of information out there for you to come to your own conclusion.
As we navigate through
So in the 20th century, people basically bought sports teams. I mean, ask yourself, what do rich people own when they get rich? They bought sports teams, they bought real estate, they bought companies, they bought land, they bought timber rights, they bought oil rights, they bought gold, they bought, bonds. They just bought stuff. Why? Because they knew if they left their money in the bank, it was going to dwindle away. Buy anything. They buy Picassos, they buy art, right? They buy stuff. So there was never a perfect digital capital. There was never a digital instrument where if you were a rich Russian and you had a choice between buying a bunch of real estate in Moscow or buying Bitcoin, well, with ex post facto hindsight, looking back for the last 30 years, okay, now let's play that out and you're a rich Nigerian. Now you're a rich, Turk. Now you're rich in Lebanon. And we don't have to be rich. Anybody with any amount of money anywhere in the world, you've got the last 100 years of history. You live in Germany in 1930. What do you want, a building or Bitcoin? You live in Argentina. What do you want? You want to own land? You want to own a building? You want a company? You want Bitcoin? The currency is going to collapse 5 times in 140 years. 5 times, right? Okay, so this is why we want to study history. If you study history, you're going to find that the currency collapsed thousands of times. In fact, on average, it collapses everywhere. Probably it collapses everywhere on average every 50 years in the history of the world. And that's maybe me being charitable. So is it too late? Well, can you actually take all of your property, put it in your pocket, and leave the country on one day notice if you need to? If not, then you're probably not too late, right? So if you go through that exercise, you can't take your building with you. You can't take your bars of gold with you. You can't take your stock shares with you. People for a while, they bought paintings thinking I'll roll them up, but, it might not be easy to, and the average person can't buy Picassos. And they're not quite exactly at the price point. How do you buy $237 a Picasso a week, right? So Bitcoin represents digital property. What's the value of digital property? Hundreds of trillions of dollars. Is it overvalued? Not yet. It's $1 trillion right now. So when it's 100 times more valuable than it is right now, will it be overvalued? Not likely. It's probably still going to be appreciating faster than every other thing you can buy. Why? Because it's better than every other thing you can buy. Show me a hotel you can put in your pocket and teleport. $1 billion of gold is like 3,000 pounds, right? How are you going to move that, right? Give me a company that's going to last through the next 3 CEOs, right? Do you know who the 3rd CEO will be after the one that runs the company now? And do you trust that person, right? The S&P 500, haven't we established there's a 99% failure rate? These are the winners. There's a 99% failure rate to generate shareholder value amongst the 500 best companies in the world. Now, if there's a 99% failure rate amongst the 500 best companies in the world, then what's the failure rate amongst the 100 million companies in the world? What's the most successful nation state currency in the history of the world? Well, if it's the dollar's lost 99.8% of its value in 100 years. Maybe 99.9% of its value. You could debate whether it's 99.8 or 99.9% of its value. every other currency in every other country lost 100%. If you're sitting around wondering, is Bitcoin overvalued? The question is overvalued versus what? Right? You're going to buy something, right? You're owning something in lieu of Bitcoin. What is that something which is better? Right? That's the real question.